Right now, I have to stop saying fuck, though.
Well, that one probably went over the air, Luds.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did. This is off to a great start. This is, for Mark, this is the cold open. So this is our SNL bit, and it's usually, did Luddy swear before or after channel went live?
Well after.
I'll tell you what, today the answer is after. So mark that on the tally sheet. We have the great Dallas Stars assistant GM, Mark Janko, in studio, and we can't wait to get to it, along with Luds, Sam, John, myself. Let's get ready, boys. Man, the thumbnail goes quickly, and there we are. This is the DLS Dallas Stars podcast on Wednesday, February 12th, and we are so happy to welcome in our next guest in studio. It is Dallas Stars Assistant General Manager Mark Janko, who is doing us a huge solid for two reasons. One, you'll bring a wealth of knowledge, and we can't wait to pepper you with those questions. Two, you're breaking up a 5-show week, which we don't have during a compressed Stars game schedule where we barely have daily shows in the middle of this Four Nations. So thank you very much for taking the time to come down here. And I hope you don't mind we put you next to Luds, because we thought
just hang
that
on
would
a
be
second.
fun.
In my defense, we're supposed to know when we're going live. If anybody heard any of that,
I heard him say live multiple times.
No, I was talking to Mr.
I
Janko.
normally I have your back.
I did hear live in 10 seconds.
Yeah, and
That was the last thing I heard.
And I
but I
wasn't
don't know
under
how
the
long the
10.
10
You
seconds
thought he
were.
was right under the 10.
By the way, how do you like our open?
Oh, John's a
The
square
little
now.
video open thing.
Oh, I loved the open. I thought the music was great. Were there any Dallas Stars players on there?
Oh, somebody's paying attention. Somebody's paying attention.
Biggest
Shout
point
out.
of
I'm
just
contention.
saying.
Luds has been trying to shake the chains up the corporate ladder.
He brought that
to
up
let
in a
him
meeting.
know. We had an all-staff meeting yesterday. He brought it up again that, hey, guys.
There's a picture over there on the wall, too,
Yep.
Janks, I'd like you to take a look at on the way out the door.
There's
Yeah.
one photo, but that's, yeah.
It's Modano, trader.
Hey, but at least we got a few bobbleheads on the set today. All right. Jenks, we're going to hit you with a ton of stuff, including a little bit later our diehards, which is our highest subscription level for fans that want to have more access. They can get into our Discord. Don't try to explain to Luds that, although he's aware of it. We set out a call for questions, and they came up with some good ones.
Computer literate, apparently, to get on all this stuff.
But we're actually going to let Luddy tee off the first question because he said, let me go first.
Yeah, I want to get me out of the way.
And then he doesn't have
You
to
guys
talk
can
for the
ask
rest
it.
of the show.
Janks, all I'm going to start you with is I'd like to get your thoughts on the importance of two people, Larry Kelly and Les Jackson.
Oh, gosh. Well, when you go to the history of the Dallas Stars, Les Jackson would be one of the top guys in terms of scouting, in terms of development of players, but also people. I think I'm one of the recipients of Les Jackson's, pouring into people. He poured into me. I always said Les saw things in me that I never saw in myself. I started, if a lot of people probably don't know my background, I started in public relations, working through the media side of it, working with guys like you, which I do miss. I really do. I genuinely miss that type of interaction with.
I thought he meant me
media.
for a second, but apparently not.
Well, and the media and players, which Craig obviously, Luddy was a player, and then even assistant coach. I was thinking about when you were with Hitch and Wills.
As if I wasn't with Hitch enough as a player in that office. Then you guys forced me to sit in there with him as a coach.
Well, you
love
were
the
one of the
guy,
guys that did a great job
I love
handling him and understood kind of where he was coming from as a coach. But anyways, Les was a guy that just poured into me. We numerous multiple times of hours and hours of just talking hockey, talking players, talking scouting, how to treat people.
Why did he talk hockey to you off the bat? Did he know? I mean,
I
could he
think-
just sense it in you, or
I guess, like I said, I think he saw things in me that I was oblivious to. He saw my work ethic. I think he saw my passion for the game, for the league, and then ultimately for the team, for the Dallas Stars. And I think he wanted to reward that. He was the one with Brett Hull that brought me up to the hockey department in 2008, and I owe Les Jackson everything. Larry Kelly, going to Larry, was the guy who hired me in public relations in 1999, and he taught me a lot of things as well. Larry had been around forever. The team had just won the Stanley Cup. He had a lot of personalities, as you know, to deal with on that team, and Brett Hull and Mike Modano and Mike Keane and Eddie Belfour and Joe Newendike and Craig Ludwig and Sergei Zubov. Just a lot of guys he had to deal with on the media side of things, and he did a great job of doing. And he kind of showed me hey, this is how you have to respect these guys, but here's when you might need to push back and say, hey, you got to do this, or we got to do that, for whether it was media or business side or whatever.
So you're from Southern California originally.
Correct.
About 25 miles southeast of Anaheim, right? Give or take.
Geography.
I was going to say.
How did you know that?
Well, I could look at the map. I was going to say about 30 minutes drive, but with LA,
Beautiful.
Anaheim traffic,
Mission
you just
Viejo.
don't know, right? Depends on the time of day.
Got it, Sam.
So my first question to you is, after you graduated from UC Santa Barbara,
Yeah. Hockey school.
what
Lacrosse
made
school,
you
too. I used to
take
play that in college.
What makes you take that internship job with media relations with at the time, the Mighty Ducks of
I
Anaheim?
was the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. I wanted to get into sports. I loved hockey. I knew that it was close to my home, and to be honest with you, I can say it now. I guess I'm a little more established. I lived with my parents right after college. Just wanted to save on rent and sit and put some money away. I was getting paid by the Ducks $6 an hour back in 1998.
Big time.
And you know what? I loved it.
Yeah.
Mark, my
I loved
first
every
job,
minute of
I
it.
got a $500 a month stipend to be the announcer for an independent minor league baseball team. I don't even think it paid for my rent.
Yeah, well, exactly. But why did you do it?
Because it was like broadcasters grad school. I got in. It was on air mic, right? It was doing innings of baseball. It was play by play, which is
He
what
wasn't
I want.
much of an athlete himself. That's why.
That's harsh, right? But it was maybe the most fun job I've ever had, because it was, I was unattached. I was at the ballpark for 14 plus hours a day. We just worked all the time, but we had a bunch of kids about the same age, college interns, a couple of full-time staff, but we just were there for the passion of it.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that I've found carries a lot of people, not obviously the player side of it, but I'm just talking about on the business side of it or on the hockey side of it. Just what carries those individuals through is the passion. And it gets harder as you get older and a little more established, not so much on the professional side, but on the personal side. You get married, you start having children, and you start doing things, and you can't be at the rink or the baseball field for 14 hours a
And
day.
make
right?
minimum wage minus 50% or whatever.
Totally. But is that passion still there, and that love for the game and for what you do? Like I always say it, and I'm serious, you guys, I am not lying. I still get a kick out of getting to the office. I love it. I love walking in every day. And it's not like it's pleasurable all the time. There's headaches, there's fires you got to put out. There's things you don't want to face and do. There's agents that I've got to negotiate contracts with. Sometimes it's not fun, but I love it. I love it. It's a challenge, and it's just such a privilege and an honor to work there.
So you're from Southern California. I went to Chapman, which is right.
Yeah, in
UCSB.
Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my only question about the Mighty Ducks, and then I'll move to the next one, is do you have any cool Mighty Ducks gear that we can take from you? Still.
I do have a signed stick.
Wait, what are we going to do with it?
I'm going to wear it.
Oh, I don't have any. I don't think I have any like merchandise other than I think I have a signed. I think my parents still have it, a signed goalie stick when I was leaving Anaheim that all the players signed for me when I was coming to Dallas in '99.
I feel like if you had a collection of some stuff, you could sell that for an incredible amount of money today.
Why would he give it to you?
I'm not saying for me. I was joking about that part. I was just saying that's like a logo that people go and chase on eBay and stuff nowadays.
They love
Don't get that squirrel drop ready.
Oh yeah. I get a little distracted sometimes. But so you talked about the build up. How did you make the flip from PR to hockey ops?
Yeah. Again, that would go back to Les. I think Les grabbed me at the end of the 2008 playoffs. We made the conference finals that year. And I remember it. I walked into his office and he just said, "Hey, I think I want to bring you up to the hockey ops department. I have a role for you. You need to learn a lot, but I think you can do it." And he was training me to take over to be an assistant GM, not in terms of, oh, you're going to take this guy's job, but that it might be with Dallas, it might be with another team. Here's your opportunity. Let's see what you can do with it. So he said, I want you to start learning the CBA, start getting to know agents, and start understanding that side of the business. You'll learn from myself. You'll learn from Frank Provenzano, who was the assistant GM at the time, and just come under us and and the words that Les used, and Lud, you might remember this, be a sponge. Just soak it up. He used to say that.
Did you have aspirations before that? Before you heard that
None.
from him?
Zero.
Okay.
I thought that, hey, if I'm in public relations, media relations for the rest of my life, this is great. One great thing about public relations that I don't face anymore is there's not really a pressure for the team to succeed. Like, when you're in public relations, if the team's doing well, great. It makes your job easier. If the team's not doing well, that's not good. But at the same time, you're not sitting there going, am I going to get let go? Yeah. Okay. As an assistant GM, you are doing those things. Those are things you're concerned about. When we're making the playoffs, missing the playoffs, making the playoffs, missing the playoffs, like we did those 4 or 5 years where we were in and out and we didn't have a lot of consistency. Those are concerning years, because like I said earlier, you have a wife, I have a wife, I have children, 3 kids, and you start going, ooh.
Is that a lot more stressful?
It can be. And I think the thing that, again, going back to Les, and I'm going to always bring Les Jackson up, one thing.
Good question, Lutz. Let's
Jim,
start off.
Well, Les did a great job with this one because
did his homework.
You hit on it with Les, and Jim Nill's like this too. They've taught me how to not bring those things home. I'm not perfect at that. That can be very difficult at times when you play a difficult game, or the team doesn't. You feel like the team doesn't show up, or it's a heartbreaking loss at the end.
I just didn't go home. That's why I didn't bring it
Go to the bar.
Just don't go home.
Yeah.
Right to the bar, huh?
Well, and then by the time you get home, it's late, and
You go to sleep.
she was so pissed off. She didn't
Well,
want to
all
talk
my
to me,
children and a
went
snack.
back to the work next day.
So what was your initial role? That was the only question I was going to. What you said before you got to the assistant GM. What was
Director
your
of hockey administration. So
Okay.
a lot of just research, arbitration research, contract research. Not so much doing the contracts with the agents and getting them done, but doing a lot of research to hand to Les or hand to Frank and say, here's what I think the market is. And it was great. It was a lot of grunt work and a lot of stuff that people didn't see, but I loved it because it really helped me kind of, fulfill, but like just kind of help round out my game, if you will, so that now where I'm at, I kind of can do that work, but then also execute.
We're seeing more and more of it now, but as you were going up, did that become a really integral part of your education and development in hockey ops because you weren't an ex-player like so many that are in those positions of management? Now we're seeing more and more rise to that haven't been an ex-NHL player.
Yeah, I think, and I just was talking to Seguin and Lian Bichsel on this last road trip because they were both on this trip. Lian Bichsel got hurt in the Anaheim game, and then he missed the next 2 games. Seguin was out there.
How come he was hiking?
I was waiting for
Let's
that.
just trying to do the research.
Why is he out hiking when he's hurt?
He had a picture of
It
him
was a day
hiking
off.
up
Climbing
in
up a
Orange
mountain
County
with the rest of the
somewhere.
guys.
Well, probably because it was an injury that he could hike with.
Yeah, so that's a nice way of
Have
saying
you-
it wasn't
says
a
with a
lower
smirk.
body injury.
Yeah. Have you ever had
Yes, he's still not good at that.
Anyway,
Let's move on.
but yeah, let's move on next. I was talking to those guys, like, I never played the game, and I've got a lot of respect for those guys. And sometimes we can sit, and you guys know this as well, because where will you guys sit during home games? Where do you guys sit
Up in
during
the press
game?
box.
Okay.
Or
So-
Luddy up in
so
the
similar to-
lounge.
Yeah, Lud's right
I
here.
sit up by the fridge up there and watch him on TV.
It's true.
Oh yeah, that's when you do your breakdowns of
Yeah.
what we did wrong.
John and I.
What we did
Oh, he
wrong.
watches. He sees.
I see
They all
it.
see.
Take notes.
I see it. He does a great job at that.
Don't get him
Anyway,
started on man-on-man coverage.
Let's get back on track real quick. So we can get disrespectful, and I think you guys might be able to say the same thing. We're the same way you guys are at the arena. We can be so far up And it can be like, why don't you just make this play? Why don't you do this? This guy was wide open. That guy's
Game
not
looks pretty easy up top.
The game
doesn't
looks
it?
really easy.
You know, a
up
buddy of
top.
yours was the worst at that.
Who?
Army. He'd sit up there. I'd sit up there with him.
By the way,
Sergey's-
for Tracy in Wisconsin, that's Doug Armstrong, GM of the St.
So-
Louis Blues.
Zuby'd have the puck and make a play, and he'd be slamming his hands up there, and he goes, what's he doing?
Nice
I'm
catch.
like, I look at him, I'm like, Army, that's Zuby down there. Yeah, but what's he thinking? I said, Army, the game is really easy from up here. I even think I could make that play from up here, and I know I can.
Yeah.
It's a perspective kind of thing.
And I totally agree. And that's where you have to, especially when you didn't play the game, like you played the game and you can see it there. I didn't play the game. I don't know what, a lot of times what those guys are thinking or not thinking. And it is easier from up top. So it can be disrespectful for me to sit there and say, what is that guy doing? What's he thinking? What's he not thinking? Do I do that sometimes? Yes, but I've got to try and guard myself from that, because when I come down after a game, a lot of times we can sit there and say, this is what we think the game was. And the coaches or the players might sit there and see it totally differently, because they're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fast. When you're down, I mean, if you guys ever sat down at the glass, it's a fast game. Things happen really quickly. During the playoffs in 23, we had Pavelski sit with us during some home games after he got hurt against Minnesota. And what's that for?
Every time we mention Joe Pavelski.
Put it up there.
Why?
Put it up there,
'Cause
Don.
Put the
we
sign up.
have not
Yep.
said his name. We have
There's
not had
the-
one show where we haven't said his
That's
name.
not true. We
That's
have gone
hilarious.
one.
You know
Well,
what?
there-
I'm a huge
Because you
huge-
have that question coming, so get
So-
used to it.
I'm a huge Pavelski fan.
Hold that thought, because I want to talk more about Pavelski
Gotta
and where
pay the
you were
bills.
going on this next here on the DLS Dallas Stars podcast.
First, we're going to talk about Sleeper, our favorites, man, our favorites. And you get to see my picks, Jenks. I'm telling you, I got these down, especially with no hockey. So Sleeper is the best fantasy league out there. You can put your ball, puck knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite player will have more or less in their projected stats each week. With no hockey, I'm going to give you my NBA expertise.
Sleeper's not giving you Four Nations
Today.
picks?
No Four Nations picks. They
Wow.
did give me some video games, but I decided not to go there. So tonight I have Damian Lillard with racking up over 27.5 points against the Timberwolves. You like that I even knew that the Timberwolves were a team?
I think you should ask Luds everything he knows about Damian Lillard.
He knows everything about him.
Portland Trailblazers.
But
I don't have a clue.
if that hits, you can win
Former.
you can win 1.68 times your money. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLSstars to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. Apply it to any contest, doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today.
Let's talk about Shady Rays. You can get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. You have hundreds of styles to choose from. Bound to get your perfect pair. They might even have the color that you like that matches your favorite team. Maybe a little victory green. One of the things that I love about Shady Rays is that they're high quality, polarized, but they don't break the bank, and they have lost and broken protection. So if anytime say you drop them off your head and it goes grinding into your driveway, you can get them replaced and it won't cost you an arm and a leg to do so. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com, use the code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. The best customer service. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. So when we first started in August, you asked us about how do we have come up with content. We had off-season moves to talk about, from the draft to free agency signings to Joe Pavelski retiring and the big hole. And we spent a lot of time, Jenks, talking about Joe, because he was by far the biggest storyline of, how do you fill that hole? Who steps up? Who goes on the power play?
Right.
Who goes on that top line?
Yep.
How do you deal with losing an assistant coach de facto on the bench and in the dressing room and on the plane and in the hotel rooms? And so it became a bit pretty quickly that we talked about Joe so much.
Right.
We started ringing a bell. John came up with the graphic for 0 days since we've mentioned Pavelski, and it's become a thing. So let me ask you, we've talked so much. We're going to get more into your history because I have some questions about that, and some of your friends chimed in things I should ask you. So I can't wait for that.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
But-
I can wait for that.
We have said consistently, and Jim Nill has been very clear. There is an open position in hockey operations or something, whether it's management, scouting, coaching, you name it, player development for Joe Pavelski, a standing order if he ever wants it. Why is it so important in your mind and your organizations to keep him involved with the Dallas Stars?
Because he does everything.
Buddy, there's a softball, huh?
Yeah, that is a softball.
Well, you answered them all before you even asked the question. I just said everything that you just said.
Basically exactly what you just said, Owen, is the answer.
He does that a lot.
No, but he is the ultimate human being, professional. I think of him so highly as a hockey player. I think of him even more so highly in terms of as a human being. He just, what he did for Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven and bringing those guys in, and not just Joe, but his wife Sarah. The story I tell about Joe, that I don't know if you guys heard this one before. We lose Game 6. Let's go back to the 2023 playoffs, second round. Joe just got back. He was injured in the first round. He had the 4 goals in game 1 against Seattle, which to me might still be the greatest moment in Dallas Stars history, other than the 1999 Stanley Cup. At least individual effort, right? Like that was just, especially because the injury came back from the injury, was at home. It was unbelievable. The only thing is we lost the game. But let's go back to that series. Game 6, I don't know if you guys remember, in Seattle, we got smoked. We had a really tough night. There were a couple players on our team that had tough nights. We stayed over that night because, as you know, Luds, when you fly back from the West like that, you can't get back at 5 in the morning and then play a game.
Which
7.
I have a question about that too, but
okay,
go ahead.
Let me finish this story first.
I'm not going to ask it though.
Anyway, so we stayed over that night at the hotel. I was down at the team meal. I'm on floor 1. I'm going up to on floor 6. The elevator stops at floor 3. Opens up. Here comes Joe Pavelski. It's like midnight. He goes, "Hey, what's going on, Jenks?" I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I was down in so-and-so's room, just trying to encourage him." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, What room you going to?" I go, I'm on the 6th floor. He goes, "Yeah, let's go." So I go. He walks in. It's 12:10 now at night or whatever. Comes in my room. We sit there. We talk for about 20 minutes, just about the game, about, what do you see? What are you seeing upstairs? We were talking about things. I told him another player that I thought was struggling that I had talked to after the game. He's like, "Hold on." Sends a text message. He goes, "Oh, he's still up. I'm going to go down and talk to him in room 422 or whatever it was." He goes, "I'll see you tomorrow morning on the bus." I said, "Great, thanks." That's what he was doing after a Game 6 loss. He's going around the hotel after midnight and he's trying to encourage guys to get them ready for what? Game 7, which we ended up winning. And that's the type of guy he is. That's what he brings to an organization. I think, he was. You said it, Owen. He's an extension of Pete DeBoer and the coaching staff. He was an extension of our management staff. You guys want to know how his contracts got done? His contracts, not his first one when he signed the 3-year extension. We didn't know each other. But his contracts got done with late night calls to me saying, "Hey, can you and Jim meet tomorrow and, try and figure something out on an extension? I want to work with you. I want to see what the cap is, see what you guys are thinking. How can we do games played? I respect you guys. We don't need agents involved. Let's just get something done." Okay. Yeah. Well,
so he did his own contracts.
He did his own contracts.
At the end.
He would just call me, and then him and Jim would sit down and we'd hash it out. It'd take a couple days. We respected each other. I think both sides, there was trust. And we got both extensions done. The 2 extensions he did with us for years 4 and 5 here were done that way. And that's just what type of guy he is. And it was all about the team.
So how do you, with a guy like Joe, that obviously love to have him here, how do you dangle something and to get him to come, or do you give him space? And I know that's with every player that retires, those guys, they need some time and get back with the family. How do you dangle it, and where would you want him? Like, what do you think would be the ideal? I mean, I have my idea, but what would be the ideal spot that the organization would like Joe Pavelski to land in?
Yeah, so the first thing is he's really into his hunting and fishing and golfing, and he coaches his son Nathan Pavelski's hockey team in Madison, and he loves he's very passionate about that stuff. He's unbelievable. He was the coach of my son's team because he played with Nathan for the last 5 years for the Elite. He was an assistant coach there. Loves it, and he's passionate about that. So he's got to be ready to do something I think how you dangle it is you just make sure he knows, which he does, that we love him and that there is always a door open. And it's at whatever, whether it's coaching, management, player development, scouting, any and all those things. You know, I think for Joe, it probably would be, let's get your feet wet, see what you like, maybe do all those things at some point and see what sticks. I think he would be an unbelievable coach. Unbelievable.
Just being a sounding board in general for players to come and, you know, you probably don't remember. Gainey had me do that one year, and it was mainly because of relationships with Hitch and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like Bob just said, you're going to get an office upstairs. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what? Why do I get an office? And I actually, and you know, Bob kind of speaks in crypt.
Yeah, he does.
You know.
Yeah.
And I called Lisa after that. And I'm like, Lisa, I don't even know what the hell he wants me to do. Like, he didn't say anything. Well, Les, you got to ask him. So ultimately, what he wanted is he just said, I want you to have an office upstairs, and it's going to be in the back. They can come up the back door, and guys want to come and talk to you. You can either make the decision, come to me with it, go to Hitch with it, or take care of it yourself.
Yeah.
And it was actually interesting to see the players that did come. It's some of the big dogs, and all they wanted to do was vent.
Be heard.
And the best thing is, and I want to throw Mo under the bus so hard right now, and I think I will.
You already have.
So
Do it.
So I talked to Mo, and he came up and he would complain about the natural things, ice time, practice, and you know, all that kind of stuff, and Hitch in general, and all this. So I kind of slipped out. But so we get on the ice a couple days later, and he would skate by me, and he just tapped me on the pads, and he'd give me the, you know, that.
Oh, I know
that one?
exactly.
You know
that
what I'm
look.
talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what was that? And so here I am trying to catch Mo because I was going on the ice with the guys too. And ultimately, I said, everything cool? He goes, oh, so much better.
Feel way better.
I never said a word to no one. I didn't say a word to no one.
You were a mental skills coach
I thought you
before
were
they were a
going to say
mental
mental
skills
midget.
coach.
I thought you were going to say midget.
No, I would never say that.
But it was that, and it was just, and that's why I think of guys like Joe. Like, he would know what to dissect.
Exactly.
Like, he either handled it himself, or he would know how to talk to him. Again, I've never played with him at all, but he just seems like a no-brainer, and you never would want to let a guy like that get away from the organization. And I think you guys are handling him the right way after post-hockey.
Let me ask you something, Les, real quick. So who poured into you when you were in Montreal?
What do you think?
As a younger player? Bob?
It was, I'll tell you what, as a rookie, and now we're owned by Molson. Were we getting way off track here?
No, keep going. You're fine.
We're owned by Molson.
I'll
So
let
every
you know.
time we get on a plane, there would be 2 cans of Molson in your seats, right? So everybody had that. Anyway, one game, we'll probably play 20, 30 games in the NHL. And I'm sitting up front, you know, all the big dogs are in the back. And I feel this guy tap me on the shoulder. It's Bo, and he's standing there, and he goes, grab 4 beers and come back and talk to me. Oh, and then he stopped me, turned around, and he goes, grab a napkin and a pencil. I mean, that's like, anyway, you know, yes, sir. So I go to the back, and he moves over and he sits down. And it's a draw up or penalty killing. Like, what do you think about the PK? And you know Bob, like, so I draw it up. I slid it over to him. He'd crack a beer. He'd take a drink. He'd look at me. He'd look at the paper. He'd look at the beer. He'd look at the paper. He'd look at me. Then he'd go, no. That was all he said. I'm like, geez,
Saying a few words.
Yeah, I just pissed off the captain of the Montreal Canadiens. But anyway, that's how he taught.
Yeah.
He would throw something in front of you, see what your response would be, and then he would tweak. And to this day, he's hard to talk to at times because he's analyzing. He's 24/7 game.
He's so smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess my point on all that is he poured into you. You knew how to pour into other guys. Pavelski had that in San Jose. He had Thornton. Jumbo poured into him. Like, Joe Pavelski told me so many stories, you guys, about Jumbo Thornton that, like, I look back on.
Patty Marleau.
Yeah, Marleau too. I think he was different.
More with Thornton.
But yeah, Thornton, like just a quick story on Thornton if we can.
Doing fine?
Pav told me they were in the playoffs against Colorado. A player blocked. It was tied. I think they were down 2-1 in the series in Denver. Game 4, pretty big game. You're down 2-1 in the series. Somebody on the team for San Jose, I can't remember who it was, blocks a shot. 10 minutes left in third. He goes off, goes back. It's still tied. They go back for their little intermission before overtime. Pretty big overtime coming up. Pav said Thornton walks back and goes, hey, where's whoever the player was? And they go, oh, he's in his dress clothes. So Thornton walks back there in his full gear and he goes, what are you doing in your dress clothes? He's like, oh, I might have broke my. I go, did they X-ray it? Yeah, they said it was negative. Can you keep your boot on? He's like, well, I took it off. I know, you shouldn't have. Put it back on. Puts his skate on. He's still in his suit. Puts his skate on. He goes, yeah, I think it fits. He goes, okay, good. Get all your stuff off and put your gear on. You're coming back out for overtime. He's like, okay. He goes out there. That guy ended up scoring the overtime winner.
No way.
Yeah.
So and then they won the series.
What year was that?
I can't remember. It would have been when Pav and look up Colorado San Jose Sharks, and I'm sure there's a way to do it.
Late
And
2000s, maybe?
it would have been
somewhere
like maybe 2011.
Yeah, somewhere in that.
Somewhere in that maybe. Anyway, they won in Colorado overtime game, and he scored the game winner. Whoever it was that blocked the shot, but it was all because of what Jumbo.
Man.
That's kind of where Pav grew up in. That's what he saw. And then he obviously is passed it on.
That's old school. Gainey and I also were in Boston in playoffs. It was like game 3 or something like that in that room downstairs where they locked the windows tight when turning the heat up and everything else. But we were laying on the table and both of us were getting, fixed up so we could play the game. And he just looked over at me and he goes, you know how we do this, right? And, and a natural response is, yeah, we want to play and win the game. And he goes, nah. He goes, we do this because if you take the game off tonight, he didn't say himself, you take the game off tonight and we got to put a younger player in there or a younger player comes in, they may go, he's a pretty good player. We should give him a chance. Ludwig makes twice as much as that guy, which is hard to believe to start with. But so it was basically saying, you give somebody a chance.
That's right.
You play, like exactly what Thornton did.
100%.
You stay in the lineup every night you can. A little different today's game. But
We have a treat for you because up next you get to hear Luds do a live read right here on the DLS Dallas Stars podcast.
Highlight of my day, Jenks. Started by 2 college buddies, Saturday Neon makes it officially licensed collegiate. I think it's a logo, LED neon sign. It's perfect for the home, office, dorm room. And listen to this, Jenks. Fan cave,
Okay.
or bar. You know what a fan cave is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
do.
it's a little different.
Well, tell me about it.
Well, it's a man cave, but apparently it's a fan cave
Okay.
now. Check out their new Essentials collection featuring almost 50 of the biggest schools across the country and counting for only $75. And their Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State signs. Unlike traditional neon, these LEDs won't break or shatter. LEDs last up to 100,000 hours, so you'll enjoy every one of those signs for years to come. Low voltage and easy to install using the provided hardware or with the 3M Commando SAM strips. Head over to SaturdayNeon.com and use code DLLS for 10% off your favorite sign.
Thanks, Luds. Let's talk about game time. The
Nailed it.
NFL playoffs are done. The Super Bowl is done and dusted, but you can still use game time to get great sports tickets, whether it's NHL games, maybe the Four Nations if you want to go up to Montreal or Boston, NBA, NCAA, you name it, you need Game Time. Game Time has a new feature in its app called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Curated deals to find the best prices. Super deal you can get concert, theater shows, stand-up comedy, sports, all those are available. Plus, you have seat views in the app so you know exactly what you're buying before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Jenks is 2010 first round. Does that sound familiar?
That's probably what it was.
So it's game 2, 6-5. They won. Devin Setaguchi was the one who scored the overtime winner.
Maybe that's who it was.
Maybe it was. He would have
And
been young.
game 4 also ended in overtime because of a goal by Mr. Joe Pavelski.
There you go. It
Probably
wouldn't have
wasn't
been. It
Joe.
wasn't Joe. No, it wasn't Joe Pavelski.
All right, John, stretch that screen for us for a minute, if you would, because we've got some fun here with many different avenues for Mr. Janko here. Let's start with, you were talking about Mike Modano.
Correct.
We found, well, there's,
Oh,
that's okay.
Oh, hey,
no,
hey,
show
hey.
that one. That's good too. We'll go through a couple photos real quick. This is the old Dallas Stars war room, and I'm wondering,
It's stretched down
this
there?
can't be the
No.
COVID
Oh, is that-
draft, is
What
That
it?
is the COVID draft. That's
Whitey?
Jim, myself, Whitey, Jim Lights, and Joe Calvino.
I was gonna say that looks like Joe. I don't have good eyes, but it looks
Is
like
this
Joe.
what it's going to look like now because the draft is going away from a centralized location like it's always been?
It is. The only thing, those 2 years in 2020 and 2021, we did that in like a smaller conference room in Frisco. And we had our, and you probably can't see it. There's a couple TVs in there that we had our scouts on. Now all our scouts are going to come in.
So you have a bigger room.
So we're going to have it's going to be set up like that, but we're going to have a bigger room because we're going to have probably 16 scouts in there.
When you see that and you try to do that, it's a lot more like the NFL, where all the big executives are in their own, what they call war rooms. They're not on the draft floor. Clearly there's some things about not being there. Jim always talks about talking to everybody and getting a feel for what moves might be happening. What's the benefits from having this setup?
Well, I guess the first one that comes to mind is that we've had success in this setup. You know, like 2021 is the last time we did it. We had a really good draft that year. You know, I'll never forget that draft because that's where we got Wyatt and Logan in the same draft. But the reason that we got them in the same draft was Wyatt didn't play that entire year because of COVID being shut down in the OHL, which you guys probably remember. He came down for the under-18s here. 3 scouts, Mark Leach, David Kolb, Joe McDonnell, who made the call on it. And then I was there because the team was actually in that COVID year. I don't know if you guys remember, we played in the division. Remember you played in your silos, your divisions? So we were out playing like Florida and Tampa.
Detroit, a whole bunch.
Little mini series.
Yeah, but during the under-18s, we were on some long road trip at the end of the year. We actually, I think, got eliminated from the playoff contention on that road trip. Regardless of that, we were watching the Canadian team and Wyatt, and Joe just had his eyes on Wyatt. And I remember thinking, you know, does he have the offense? You know, does he have the offense to play in your top 6? And Joe's like, he does. He's just not playing it here because he's behind Bedard and McTavish and some of these other guys that were on that team, right? And so Joe just had it. And so that draft, I think we were picking 15. We missed the playoffs. I think we were picking 15. We were in that conference room, I think right around that where that picture was taken, and Detroit called. They wanted to trade up to take that goalie Casa.
Yep.
So I remember Jim got off the phone and looked at Joe and said,
Is he still going to be there?
He said, is Wyatt going to be there? And I think we were getting like 23 and 47 or something like that back from Detroit for them to move up and take the goalie. And Joe goes, yes. And Jim goes, are you sure? And he goes, yes, he's going to be there. Nobody saw him. He's going to be there. Okay. So we did that. We ended up trading down. We got Wyatt with the pick. Joe was right
Is there
at
any
23.
sweating it out before you get to that pick?
Joe was so confident.
Really?
Joe was so confident. Maybe because nobody saw him that year, maybe because of the role he played at the under-18s.
I mean, even just missing the whole year, you imagine pushes him down a good amount, right?
Exactly. And so Joe was so confident. So we got the second round pick, and we were able to take Logan Stankoven. So I look back on that picture, and that's what I remember. And so I'm excited about the draft being remote like that because we've had some success.
Doesn't that also tell you about Jim Nill having the trust in
It's a really good point.
his people?
Yeah, and he does.
Yeah,
he does. He makes the call on all things, but he listens to everybody. And there's times where Scott White was in that picture. Scott White, myself, Joe McDonnell, Rich Peverly's part of our management group. We disagree with Jim on things. Mostly we're probably wrong and he's right, but we do disagree at times. Why pay us and have us in our positions if we're just going to agree with everything Jim says? However, when we walk out of that door, it's Jim's call and we support it no matter what. And that's the culture Jim has, allowed us to operate in. And I think that's part of the reason why we've had a lot of success lately.
So we have some PR stuff from the early days, and then we'll get into more of what your role is now. Show that photo that we found on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
That was a while ago, I'm guessing.
Look at that.
There's you with Mike
absolute
Modano.
Dallas Stars legend and Mike Modano.
Wearing an orange tie.
A little like Curtis McKenzie there.
I look young there. Oh, my gosh.
When you dealt...
I'm making him laugh. You can tell I'm making
Good news
him laugh.
is it's above a beer sign.
You didn't get to the tanning salon
I
like
knew
Mike
Lens
Moe
would
did
go
in
there.
that picture.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So
wasn't playing golf like Mo.
I want to ask you about those players. One of the guys I talked to in getting ready for this said, I should ask you, what did Sergei Zubov used to tell you when you tried to grab him to do media?
Okay. I think I know where that
That's always
That's what
fun.
he's trying to figure out.
There
not
was
the
a
answer.
there was a playoff series against Edmonton. I want to say we played them every year, right?
Yeah.
I think this one was in 2003. I think might have been 2000. Anyway, Zuby had like a goal and 2 assists and was the best player on the ice by a million miles. And so I put his number up on the board. You write the numbers up of the guys. You want 3, 9, and 56. You want them talking to the media, right? And 56 was up there, and he pulled me aside, and he said, "Hey, I'm not doing it." And I said, "You got it." I said, "You're the best player on the ice. You're the number 1 star." He goes, "I'll stop scoring." And to this day, I don't know if he meant I'll stop scoring because I'm going to get jinxed if I talk to him, or I'll stop scoring so I don't have to talk to the media.
So I don't have to talk to them.
It was the latter.
Yeah, it was the latter.
I was always thinking it was the latter.
That is
I'll
hilarious.
stop scoring and I'll start smoking more.
What an unreal person and athlete, though. Seriously, huh?
Just to be able to do what he did, and he would swear on his life. Like Zuby would, it was like Flower, like Guy Lafleur. You would thought he had a zipper on his stuff. It was off in seconds, and Zuby was back in the shower. And so a couple guys had a beer and stuff like that, and a couple cigarettes or whatever. And we'd be screaming at him like, "Zuby, Jesus, stop smoking." He goes, "I don't smoke. I'm not smoking. I don't smoke." It's rolling out of there like a 5-alarm fire coming out of the shower. You'd tell him, "Well, what is that?" "That's just the steam. That's the steam," and everybody could smell it. But to be able to do and again, he was a solo. He was on his own. Him and Arena, they do their thing. But to be the talent that he was, and to be able to do what he did, it was incredible. His hands, his head, his skating ability. It seemed like he was going faster when he was going through the neutral zone, just shuffling his feet along. And Hitch hated East-West hockey, right? He hated it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was a conversation we'd always have, like, Hitch, if he makes one mistake out of the 10 times he's out there, we'll take care of it. But yeah, a special person. I roomed with Zuby for approximately 4 hours one trip, and he put us in a room, and I don't know why the hell to start with. We were roomies. I got up there, and Zuby was there, and he was on his computer, and I dropped my stuff off, and I left. And when I came back, nobody in the room. All of his stuff was gone. I get back probably a little bit after curfew, and next morning I get on the bus.
Just a little
Zuby,
bit.
where are you at? What are you doing? You don't come back. You never come back. I'm like, how do you even know? That would be a pleasure for you. So, yeah, but he was just he was Han Solo, but everybody loved him, and nobody better that I played with.
So this is from a different person I talked to, but in the same vein. Apparently, you guys had, when you were in PR, you had copiers in the office.
Oh, gosh.
And you had them named after 3, at the time, current players. Modano, Lettinen, and Arnott. And apparently, Johan Hedberg overheard you guys talking about that and loved it. And we want to hear the story.
That one I'm probably going to have to save because I don't want to rip on anybody here. There is a funny story, but I'll have to say it another time.
Okay, fair enough.
Smart.
I also was told that I need to ask you about the competitive ball hockey games in the Frisco offices back in the day when you guys were in PR, and why, and this was not from him, why Rob Schickley's blinds were damaged from balls flying in there.
So Schicks used to have blinds in his office, and whenever he got on an important call with somebody, we would take the ball and we would just take a slap shot and fire it into the blinds so that he's on the call with somebody at the National Hockey League, and he's going, "Okay, what time's the conference going to be?" And you would just hear this in the background. And then he'd always be trying to run us down and get us, but he'd still be on the phone. Yeah, those days were very, very fun. Good days.
All of this stuff was, everybody that I talked to had really funny anecdotes. We brought up a couple of them. I'm also supposed to ask you about, it's down here, what team Frank Minifield is best known for playing.
Okay, that would be from Tom Holy, who is now the San Jose Sharks assistant GM, who I just saw. Yeah, Frank Minifield was Tom's a diehard Cleveland everything.
Diehard.
And so Cleveland Browns, he was in the Cleveland Browns defensive back, And Stretch one day was like, hey, didn't he play for the Vikings? And we're like, Vikings? No, he played for the Browns. And so then we always laughed about that. And that was the story behind that, which was funny. But it's kind of an inside joke. I don't know why we're bringing it up here, Tom.
Well, Tom and the other guys, there's several that I talked to, all had funny lines, but then also said, nobody that's worked harder, nobody's had more energy, upbeat nature. You know, they just were effusive, buds, in how much you've earned where you're at, how you've worked your way up to this point. Incredible guy, you know, does so much. Tom even said, I can't believe how much after I left the organization, you were a resource for him, and was really, really complimentary of that. One question he actually suggested was, we want to hear about the whole bubble experience. Tom said he loved every second of it, but that Jenks can detail the eating establishments.
Yeah, I probably could.
This is the Edmonton
I
bubble
think Scott
playoffs.
White had 67 burgers at the Braven, which was a restaurant in the hotel that they opened just for everybody that was there, right? And it was closed to the public. And it was called the Braven Burger. And I think Scott Whitey, it was like, I'll have a burger and fries, I'll have a burger and fries, I'll have a burger. Like every day we were like, Whitey, and he's like, 32, 41, 56. We're like, how many burgers have you had? But yeah, the bubble was great. It was awful. It was mentally challenging. It was exhilarating because you were winning play. Like, we went all the way to the finals. You know, I was talking about the Pavelski. The other game for me in my life that was, where's the ding? By the way?
Yeah.
John got caught.
He was smart. He muted it for the guest. That was
That's
smart.
what you do
I
it to
thought
us
you
all
were
the
doing
time.
it every
See?
single time.
Exactly.
I was with John. Once in a
point,
while.
John.
Once in a while.
But the other game that's up there for me was I'll never forget, and I'm sure you guys won't. You probably remember where you were. Was the Game 7 Joel Kiviranta
Colorado
hat trick? And what's crazy about that story actually was the Andrew Cogliano, who you guys remember was like a warrior, one of those guys you talk about, Luds, never missed games. Was an Ironman for a long time. I think he had the Ironman, and then he got suspended.
He got suspended
in Anaheim on a questionable thing, and that's what broke it. But he played every night. He was banged up, and the momentum was going against us. You know, remember we were up 3-1 in the series. We lost Game 5. We lost Game 6. So I remember Rick Bowness. We met, and Jim Nill was involved in this, obviously, and it was like, maybe we need to get fresh legs in there. And it was kind of like, we're taking Cogs out, but he's banged up. It was one of those things where it was a tough decision. It was agonizing. We ended up putting Kiviranta in. The game ends on the hat trick in overtime, and we walk in, and Todd Nelson, the assistant coach, who now is the head coach of Hershey, I never forget, everybody's clapping, hugging, and everything, and he looked around and he goes, well, I think Kivi going in was probably the right decision. Everybody started laughing.
That's awesome.
So yeah, but the bubble, great, awful, cool, scary, all of it.
Never want to do it again.
Probably never. We had to get tested every day.
Oof.
We'd go up the nose the one day and then the throat the next day. They would alternate, and it was, it was surreal. It was weird.
All right, let's talk some serious hockey and your questions for Mark Janko next here on the DLS Dallas Stars podcast. Boy, did we get that
On
under
the
the
dot. That
wire.
was
We
scary.
were on time.
We should have probably warned him about the times of breaks.
No, that's okay. That's our job.
we didn't prep
Speaking
you.
of being a diehard, one of the benefits
I'll
of
adjust.
signing up, use that QR code right down below Jenks. He could actually point at the screen and show you that QR code.
Look
You
at
can
that.
scan that, or John can help
He's
out
a
there.
pro already.
That'll take you to alldls.com. You can click
Look at
on
Jenks is on
the
it. Jenks is
diehard.
on it.
He's got it. He's pointing foot and finger. And if you sign up, your annual subscription gets you so much, including access to the diehard only Discord channel, where we did a call for questions, and some of your diehard questions will be posed right to Mark Janko here in just a few minutes. We also have a couple super chats coming in. If he has enough time, we'll get to that. You get, of course, with your annual subscription, get a free DLS t-shirt of your choice. You also have access to the diehard level articles that Sam writes, Sean writes, the other shows, whether it's Rangers, Cowboys, Mavericks. There's a lot of stuff going on with all of the DFW sports teams, and that is your way to get the best level of coverage with DLLS. So thank you for all the diehards. We found out we're doing pretty well with getting new diehard subscriptions, maybe beating out another ALLCITY or so. So keep it up. We're growing. We want you to be there with us. AllDLS.com. Use that QR code. Okay.
Now that Showtime, Showtime, or whatever we call it, is done with.
Boy, show and tell is tough for you.
God, let's get some hockey talking.
Okay.
I want to ask you the anatomy of a trade. What all goes into it. And just use Daryl Sador. Okay. Just let's pretend he plays today.
Yeah.
And we're trying to acquire, or there's a move made for Alex Tuck.
Okay.
But, yeah, so beginning to end. And this isn't just a week process.
No,
right?
no, this is like, to be honest with you, we just had our January scouting meetings. I shouldn't say we just had them. I guess 2-3 weeks ago, middle of January in New York. So you have how we do things is you have 4 days of scouting meetings. You bring all your scouts in. 2 of the days are the amateur draft. So you're talking draft the entire time. The other 2 days are pros. Pros, you're talking about trades, signings, cap, where we're going, contracts, what we project guys to be at this year, 2 years from now. And usually we kind of look 3 years out. You talk about all that type of stuff you're talking about, trades and whether it's rentals or guys with term or, those types of things are all getting hashed out at that time. You kind of put that all together. What's feasible? What's not? What would we want to do? What wouldn't we want to do? And you kind of hash through it all. Jim kind of runs all those discussions with the scouts and management. And we get a good base and a good list together of where maybe Jim should reach out to some general managers and see if there might be something that would make sense. In that scenario, if that's something that you're willing to do, I think Jim's calling Buffalo and talking about Tuck. Usually in that conversation, you probably would bring up, we'd be willing to move a defenseman, left shot guy who's mobile and a veteran player. You might not bring up Daryl Sador's name there, but you might just give him a little bit of a
dangle a carrot.
A little bit of a carrot. You probably want to get Tuck's name out there so he knows what he's got to start wrapping his mind around giving up. And then you just kind of let it marinate. I'd say 99. Gosh, I mean, I'm guessing, but like 99% of those conversations that Jim has with general managers on trade don't happen.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But there is a percent that 2 weeks, 2 months, sometimes a year later, there's a call and it's like, hey, you still interested in this player? Yeah. Well, who do you think you would do it? And now you start accelerating. When the second and third calls are starting to get engaged, now we have something that might happen.
So I think it's important that the fans know when you guys started dialing in or even being interested in a CC and a Granlund kind of thing. That it just didn't happen a week earlier.
No.
Like when did that process, or just having him on your radar, if something comes down the pike that this is what we'd be interested in?
I'd say you're starting to look at your rentals in November, December, what your needs are. You're starting to look, you're watching your team, you watch it through October, you get through November. Okay, we got a pretty good kind of see where we're at. The one thing that, with Seguin going on LTI and all this stuff and everybody saying, rush into that, put them on LTI.
Yeah.
What are they doing? You never know when you're going to get an injury. We didn't know we were going to get an injury to Miro and the extent of it, right? So we needed to really kind of accelerate on who are those defensemen. We already identified it, to your point, CC back from November. We met on him in January. We knew exactly what we had our list built on who we wanted on the back end, and even in the forwards for rentals. CC was near the top of that list, at or near at the top of that list. And so now you're going to call San Jose and sit there and try and get a deal together. Sometimes those things are one for one, which I think it started out that way and then it built.
How do you describe Cody Ceci?
Defensive defenseman, big right shot, strong, good on the penalty kill, mobile.
You put him in a category of top 2, top 4, top 6.
Well, we'll do top 2. Yeah, top 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, or a bottom pair, right? That kind of.
In other words, one of the 6. That was a cop out.
Oh, I thought you meant in general. How do we talk about defensemen in general?
Yeah.
I'd say he's a 3 to 5.
Okay.
Depending on what your team is. I mean, he was a number 1 in San Jose.
Yeah.
right? He was playing 22 minutes a night. In
Same
St.
with Granlund. He was playing top center minutes.
So you mentioned the deal last week. There were a ton of moves around that. So one, you just mentioned the Seguin thing. When did you know that LTI was Seguin's plan?
Well, after the surgery, it was pretty, like we knew it was going to be a pretty long process after, before the surgery, but then after the surgery and started his rehab, we knew this was going to take a long time for him to get back. Is he going to get back in the regular season? Is it going to be game 1 of the playoffs? We don't know right now. So, and Miro too. Miro's kind of similar. We don't really know until you start getting him around in terms of rehabbing. Does he start skating at some point? And then you might be able to get more of a timeline. So Seguin, I think pretty early on, we knew, okay, he's going to miss a while. How long is that? I don't know, but we're going to be able to utilize that money. But let's wait and try and maximize as much cap space and accrue as much cap space as we can in order to make a move and then do the LTI and maybe make other moves.
So as far as moves go, again, I can go back into the day when Hully was here. Mr. Hicks had made the call to Bob, and he asked him, what do we need to get past Detroit, right? And it ended up being Hully.
Yeah.
Do you guys go to Tom Gaglardi with things, or is it, you know what I mean? Is it every deal, or is it maybe a bigger deal? How often do you do it or want to do it, or do you have to do it, run things by him?
Yeah, Jim runs everything by Tom. I think they talk every day or every other day.
Oh, wow.
And whenever there's anything with regard, well, Tom's very engaged. He's a smart businessman. He's a smart hockey man. He knows the game. He knows our team. He knows what our needs are. And he pushes us. He pushes Jim. And Jim is that's one of Jim's, I think that's one of the biggest attributes you need in a successful general manager is managing an owner. There's a lot of other things that goes into it, but talking and managing and communicating and kind of explaining what you want to do or what you're going to do to an owner is maybe number one. And Jim is a 10 out of 10 at that with Tom.
May I ask you a back channel question? Meaning you talked about Jim having conversations with other GMs. How often, because I think of this like I think of the State Department with ambassadors talking, but also the subordinates, the deputy assistant secretary, having conversations. How often do eventual trades or just conversations happen between assistant GMs from various teams? And do those things happen before it elevates to the GM level?
Yeah, those conversations are had quite. I've been in the league for 25 years now. I've got a lot of relationships with people around the league that work for different teams. And yeah, you're talking in a more informal manner about what your needs are, what their needs are. But yeah, I mean, it can happen. And it does. And then, I might say, hey, Jim, you might want to call San Jose. I just talked to Tom Holy about
putting feelers out
or whoever. I'm using we just made the trade with San Jose, but that's not how it happened. Or St. Louis or whoever it is. They might be looking for this. Might make sense for us to call them. And then, Jim's usually pretty good. He's got a really good radar on what the market is and who wants what and who needs what and what we need. So he's probably on top of it already. But yeah, those conversations are being had.
I have to imagine there is just spreadsheets on top of spreadsheets that you guys use for that type of stuff. Is there just like a database you have where it's, hey, we're looking for this, and then you have all the teams who is looking for similar things?
We got our we got our scouting software, RinkNet, which we have all our database in there with all our scouting reports and depth charts and lists and who's a UFA, who's a RFA, whose contracts up, all that type of stuff. And then I have all my sheets of my caps that or my cap sheets that I keep on our team and for every team.
So you're not just using Puckpedia?
I don't use Puckpedia. No, I don't use Puckpedia, but I might go to that at times, That Cap Friendly was always fantastic, resource that I enjoyed. But that's kind of how we do it, Sam. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you have to go through. And usually when you going back to Lud's original question on conversations and how they get the number one thing we talk about is the cap. That's the first thing we have to. Can we fit it in?
Yep.
How are we going to fit it in? Especially if somebody's got term. If there's somebody that has term, it's like, well, what are we projecting Wyatt's contract? Is Jamie coming back? Okay, at what number? Is Duchesne coming back? Okay, at what number? Bork's up. We've got Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson are coming up in 2 years. So that's why we usually are talking about the cap when it comes to trades first, And then we kind of go into, okay, can we make this work in terms of the trade
Are you a
value?
little bit more cautious, or like when you guys have a good feel that we got an opportunity here? Like, let's talk about the Newendijk trade, right?
Yep.
I mean, at the time,
Hold that thought, Luds. Well, if this is not going to take 10 seconds, we want to thank you for those of us joining on our television platforms. Make sure to like and subscribe here on the pod. Check out alldls.com. Okay, Luds, take it away.
I didn't get no memo that there was a break time.
It's the same every show.
Yeah, but I don't pay attention every show.
Or any show.
But when the time comes across the table,
Yeah.
and when you talk about it's all about the cap,
Yeah.
about this is when we kind of throw all that stuff aside and you pull the trigger on something like that.
Yeah.
Is this that team? No, well, let me before
You're
injury,
saying like
injuries.
go all in.
If
type
there
thing?
if there's something there that kind of the whole what's going to get us past Detroit, what's going to get us to the
Yeah.
whole that promised land.
I agree with you.
Or is
I
the
know
cap
what you're.
even more important than pulling the trigger on something like that? Giving up a potential, you're giving up. So what do we get? We got a Ginla. It wasn't an established player at the time.
Right.
Hall of Famer now that all said and done.
Yeah.
Is that all changed because of the cap?
Yeah, it has. Like,
Okay.
I think those are harder to make now because it's not just about, do we want to get this guy who's having a contract dispute and pay him whatever it is that he wants, Joe Newendijk,
Yep.
where we can get him and sign him. Those are tougher to make now. But with the cap going up, I think more of those things might be able to happen with the cap going up because there's going to be teams in 1, 2, 3 years from now, they're going to have cap room just because the cap's going up so dramatically that, maybe we can trade for this guy and then sign him. Or, the dirty 2 words, offer sheets. Offer sheets are going to come in, right? Those types of things.
Do you think that's going to be more feasible now with the cap going up so much?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen more now.
I heard this from a couple
always were in the
pundits, and I was really curious to ask you about this.
Yeah. What offer sheets?
Yes.
Or, yeah. I mean,
you just saw what happened in St. Louis.
Lud's boy Army did 2 of them this past summer.
Yeah.
I think that they're in the rules, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I mean, Doug's got every right to do that. It's in the CBA, right? It's just, do you do them if teams don't have, cap room? That's my thing. Why do you do it? Do you just drive the price up for the team that wants to sign them? Like sometimes when you see an offer sheet and a team's got $12 million in cap room and they do it for 8, it's like, did they necessarily need to do that or just drive? Army did it because he knew Edmonton couldn't afford him because
Kind of felt like the Shea Weber offer sheet back in the day was driving the price up for
Nashville.
Right.
But again, that's going to go back to kind of what I'm saying is it's going to turn into cash. Philly did it and structured that way for Weber because they didn't think Nashville was going to pay the signing bonus and pay the money that they were going to have to pay Shea Weber the way that the offer sheet was positioned, right? Is that going to happen for richer teams with the cap going up? Possibly. Maybe a team has cap room, but they won't be able to make the budget work and do the cash of it. That may happen.
We have a bunch of questions from our Discord. If you guys have more you want to do before we get to that, hit them.
Go ahead.
But I do have one thing I want to ask you prior to that. This Luka Doncic trade. It's a huge deal in Dallas.
Yeah.
From a management perspective of the Dallas Stars, how much do you guys put into the consideration how it affects the fan base, the community, the public perception, all those things? Or is it strictly hockey?
No, I think you have to look at those things. I don't think those things, in my opinion, are number one. But do they play a factor within trades or signings or lack of trades or lack of signings? Yeah, I think they should. I think those are important factors. The Mavs thing, I've got a lot of opinions on that. I don't have answers. I know a lot of people are going around thinking they have answers on everything, and I don't think that's necessarily true. And everybody's entitled to, and I totally respect the opinion side of it. But I don't know if I need to necessarily go into those opinions here, but I do think those things are important. But I think the most important thing is, and this is just in my opinion, winning. anybody can get traded. Luka got traded. Wayne Gretzky was a pretty good player for the National Hockey League. He got traded, and people can say, oh, different circumstances. Fair enough, but he did get traded. So I think the number one thing is, are we going to win with X or Y or Z player? And a lot of the fans and us four sitting here might say, oh, yeah, they could win with Luka. And to me, it looks like they probably could have won with Luka. It's just there's one guy or management or ownership or whatever that didn't believe that. And that's how I see it. And I don't think, they're trying to take the Mavericks, to a tank them and get them the number one pick. I think they're trying to do what's best for the organization. I really believe that. Is it best for the organization? I don't know. I have no idea.
One of the things we've talked about on our show is comparing the way Jim and you and your hockey operations department operate compared to, say, Jerry and the Cowboys, the Mavs, etc. And it really feels like the answer Jim has given countless times seems so apropos, which is his job. He says, my job is to create success for the Dallas Stars now and in 5 years. He never says, I want to win a title. He means, I want to set the Dallas Stars up for success now, 3, 4, 5 years from now and beyond. And that seems like the ultimate goal. It's not about Jim Nill. It's about his job to make the Dallas Stars competitive and win.
Yeah. And I think hopefully that's the way we operate. And I think we do. It doesn't necessarily mean we get everything right. Doesn't mean we don't have skeletons in the office or in the skeletons in the closet when it comes to contracts, draft, signings, trades. We've made mistakes. We're not
plenty of drama with the Stars.
We're not sitting up here waving our cape behind us like we're perfect, right? So, but you try and minimize those. I think that's one thing that Jim's done a great job of, and I think our staff has, is that when we've made mistakes, we've minimized them and we've tried to learn from them and grow and develop and get better from those mistakes so that we don't make them again.
I have one question before we go to
Please.
the diehards. So you had a big hand in some pretty big things with the Dallas Stars: mental health, sports science, analytics departments.
Building those.
How did those come about, and how does that help this team on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sam. I'm very proud of all three of those initiatives that we've done. And I didn't build them out by myself. Jim was a big, Jim and Scott White and Rich Peverly were involved as well. All three of them are very important, paramount to our success. Analytics has been around for a long time. We've really started to get a good grasp on how we can utilize that on the coaching side, on the management side, on the scouting side, on the amateur side, on the pro side. We don't have there's no magic bullet. We don't have all the answers to it, but we're getting more answers than we had 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and it feels like we're getting in a really good spot with it. Matt Rodell is our director of hockey analytics. He runs it. He's got two guys that work for us in the office, Derek Lasker and Brad Behan. All three of those guys run our analytics and do a great job, and we're very comfortable with where that's at. Sports science, Troy Van Biesen kind of runs that. He's been around for a long time. We're just kind of getting into that. This is our second year. There's a lot that goes into that, sleep studies, and a lot of things that Lud's never had to deal with as a player, I'm sure.
Still don't.
Still doesn't sleep.
Probably still doesn't. But, players take care of themselves.
Still do.
Really, really, really well these days. And we're getting kind of scratching the surface on that. But we're getting more answers there. And then the mental health side of it. We are very fortunate enough to have Chad Bowling be our mental skills coach. He is full-time with the Yankees since 2005. He's worked with the Cowboys for the last 15 years, and he's been with us for 5 years. And he does an unbelievable job meeting with players. He helps scouts. He helps management. He helps myself. Sometimes they get inside of our own heads or get in other people's heads in terms of the player side of it and say, this is what they're thinking and what they're struggling with or what they're doing well in. So all three of those initiatives, Sam, I think are paramount to our success for sure.
Do you ever have, this is probably a no, but do you ever have, what was his name, the mental health?
Chad Bowling.
So do you ever have Chad in a meeting with you? I feel like it could help to have someone sitting there when you, Jim, maybe a bigger group is talking, and him kind of say, here's maybe why you're thinking that way or something like that.
Totally. And I think that maybe at some point we would go that. I haven't yet, or we haven't yet. I have picked his brain before meetings I've gone into and said, hey, this is kind of how I'm going to handle this with this or that. And he's very good about giving you very informative. Here's some practical things you can do or what you might want to say. But we haven't had him sitting in those meetings.
If he was sitting here with us, he'd change professions.
He'd retire.
He's done.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I want you to do whatever you have to do, whoever you have to move, to win a Stanley Cup the next year or two for Jamie Benn.
I don't disagree.
Was it hard to watch the? Obviously, nobody likes to. We'll get to our questions. I
Yeah,
promise.
no.
Is it hard to watch Joe Pavelski retire without a cup?
Yeah.
Because we were that close.
Yep.
I say we. I was working for the Stars organization until this summer when I came to DLS, and I joke with Luds. I said, "You watch, they'll win it this year, and I won't get a Stanley Cup ring." Whereas 12 months ago, I'd be on that list.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What makes you think
Supposedly.
you're actually going to get a ring anyways?
It was in the contract.
Was it?
Oh, he must have a good agent.
Jason Walsh insisted when I first joined. He hired me. Who's now running Victory
That's why
Plus.
you stayed so long.
Wrote in the contract, you get a Stanley Cup ring.
Wasn't
that's
the
an
team like
awesome little
really
deal.
bad when you started though? So were you like,
no,
I'm trying to think of when
not administration with the NHL bad, but there were some ups
How
and downs.
often does Owen hijack your question?
It's unbelievable. It's just he
All
loves
of
hearing
them.
his own voice.
Totally,
Just-
yes.
Typical radio
he's
guy.
not a radio anymore?
So anyway,
Yeah,
he was talking about Jamie.
yes. So the Joe Pavelski.
I understand
we-
you
we
jumped
went-
on the
we went
Joe
right to
thing,
him,
which
yeah.
which makes sense.
Pavelski.
But yeah, I agree with you, Luds. I think of all the guys I've ever been around, Joe would be 1 and Jamie would be 1A in terms of wanting guys to win it. Ryan Suter was there as well, which obviously he was on the team last year. Just professional guys, play the game, do the things right. I always say on those 3 guys in particular, Suter, Pavelski, and Jamie Benn, at the end of games, we get on our app. We get an app. Dave Zeiss, our trainer, will send us all here's this guy's he's got a groin injury. This guy's got this guy's got that. And, especially in the playoffs or towards the end of the regular season, you got like 10 guys on there. I have never seen, other than Joe Pavelski's injury during the Minnesota, obviously, with the head and the shoulder during the playoffs, I've never seen Pavelski, Jamie Benn, or Ryan Suter's name on there. Never once. Never once.
That's wild.
Never once. You think they were dealing with shoulders?
There's
and
no
groins
way
and
they're
this is
healthy.
Jamie
Benn.
They're older players that have played forever. Ryan just played in his 1500th game, right? Of course they have injuries. They would tell the trainer, don't put it on there because I'm not missing.
But they're talking to the trainers. They don't want it on that
treatment.
list.
They get
Right.
treatment.
Trainers are your best friends. Trust me.
Right.
Well, it's still best friends with trainers.
All right. So we put a call out to the Discord for our diehards if they want to ask some questions to Jenks. Jenks has been really generous with his time. We hope we can stretch you for a few more minutes if you're okay.
No problem.
All right, Sam. We've got
We
a good
trades to
list.
make. Let's go.
And by the way, our buddy Ardell
what is this?
Ardell is in this group.
This is our diehards.
So these are our diehard
Oh, these are
subscribers
questions from people.
from our fans and
follow our
viewers.
show,
There
yeah.
are people that are drinking right now.
Yes, the people that are on our shows at 2 a.m. or when you guys are playing the Ducks. So, first one, how is it working with Jim Nill in terms of he has such a great reputation with fans and the league? What's it like on a day-to-day basis? And that's from Jay Nazir.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. Jim is what you see on television or radio or podcasts, the classy individual that he is, the genuine person that he is. He's the exact same way day to day. He is open door policy. Come and talk to me about anything you want, professionally, personally. He cares about people. He has created the culture that we have within the organization. It all stems from Jim. And I can't say enough kind words about him. He's a better person. He's an unbelievable. I think he's a Hall of Fame hockey, executive. I think he's even a better person.
John, Jenks would like you to clip that and email it directly to Jim,
Your
please.
contract's up.
I was going to say, is there a raise due here?
Just kidding. I genuinely mean that.
All right, next one. Let's go to Sooner Fan 4321. He asked for
Oh, I
a
like
favorite
this.
story from either Nil, Razor, or Heike. So
Actually, ask for all three.
I'll ask for all three, or if you have one that really
There are
stands
three
out
different
for
personalities
those three
there, aren't
guys.
there? Them three.
Little different people there.
Wait, a favorite story about Jim,
Razor,
Razor,
or
or
Heike.
Heike?
Not Mike.
Mike,
Well,
what are you going to say bad
Two
about
of, the,
Mike?
two of the three have been on our show, so
Well, the third one, he was booked for next week, but unfortunately, the team is leaving for New Jersey an hour before our show,
Yeah.
so we're going to have to reschedule Heika.
Razor stories would be great. I just don't think I can say them on here.
he probably told him. He was on for about 2.5 hours when he came on here. So
Razor was?
Oh, yeah. We had a good time with him.
I love Razor. Razor is just an unbelievable guy. Just does such a great
Just ask
job.
him.
Just ask him. He is he's a Dallas Stars Hall of Famer for sure down the line. I guess my favorite Jim Nils story, I've told this a few times. People have probably heard this. Going back to the bubble, I have a condition called it's a very rare condition. It's called EOE. It's eosinophilic esophagitis. I can get food caught in my esophagus. I did not know this until the bubble in Edmonton. That's part of the reason why it was so scary when I talk about the bubble and how I was scared. I got rushed away. I got food stuck in there in my esophagus during the second round against Colorado.
No way.
They had to rush me to the hospital, operate, and remove some stuff out of me where it was very serious. And Jim was in my room in Edmonton, basically holding my hand as I was trying to get things out of my esophagus that weren't coming up. I was in tears. I was scared. I thought I was going to die. And Jim stayed there from about, I'd say 1 a.m. until 4 a.m. in my room.
Wow.
Until they finally said, "Hey, you got to break the bubble and get out of here." And we'll deal with the quarantine on the other side of it, which is what I did. Then I had to quarantine for 4 days in the hotel room, which was miserable.
You
After
were
I just had surgery.
quarantining on top of quarantining. All
I
right.
had to quarantine after it because I had broke the bubble, because I went to the hospital
Okay.
to get it removed. And then in the quarantine, it was the rooms were small, obviously. It just felt like it was probably 40 days rather than 4 days. And Jim would call me every day, call me, bring me breakfast, talk to me, send me Bible verses and scripture. Jim was just such an encouraging guy, and that's probably the number one story I have. It has nothing to do with hockey. It's just what kind of person he is.
It's a good one. All right, next up is Crypt G's. Some interesting names on this.
Yeah, seriously.
With the salary cap increasing the next few years, can we, as in the Dallas Stars, still maintain the take less to give more for team mentality?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have a culture here where guys have bought into playing here, being here. Whether we don't really necessarily tell agents you have to take less. It's more take what's fair. So I think that's kind of the way we try and do it with agents. Is it's not so much, okay, here's what you're worth on the market, you got to take this. It's more, here's what the top guys make, here's what the bottom guys make that are similar players, let's say, comparable. Why don't we try and get you in the middle of that? And that'll help us. We always say every $100,000 to $200,000 that a player takes, a little less on than market, maybe, and you can try and talk about taxes and all that stuff as well. But any $100,000 or $200,000, if you multiply that by 20, that's a $2 to $4 million player that you might be able to get in there to help your team win. And at the trade deadline, that might grow to an $8 to $10 million player, right? So those things I think our guys have bought in on, and I think they'll continue to do it, especially with the cap going up.
All right, next one from Marshall Second. How are the Stars balancing acquiring players who can help us win a cup today while ensuring we have the success for the future? So basically, how do you live by what Jim Nils says?
I think we got to keep drafting and developing. We've given up some assets, and to be honest with you guys, it's concerning. We've given up a lot of first round and second round picks. We haven't traded, the Maverick Borks, Lian Bichsel, Logan Stankovins, Wyatt Johnstons. We haven't traded those blue chip prospects, if you will, but we have traded away a lot of picks. And so, a lot of times people will say, well, Jim and I do this. We do it 3 times a year. We do like a season ticket holder where people come in and Victory Club members can ask us questions.
And I'm sure they're all softball questions.
And you're right. They're very similar to these questions, which aren't softball, right? But a lot of people, why did you go get a trade a second round pick for this? Or why wouldn't you do this for a second round pick? And, we usually sit there and say, do you like Logan Stankoven? Do you like Jason Robertson? Do you like Rope Hintz? Those are all second round picks. So those are all guys we could be missing out on because we've been trading away these second-round picks, those types of players, right? So that is concerning as a management group. However, you balance that with what Luds was talking about of we're trying to go all in.
That to me, that's what I was going to say. That's showing that you are going all in your own way, because going back, 10, 15 years ago, those draft picks became incredibly important.
That's right.
It's the lifeblood of your organization.
100%. 100%. So, yeah, I think you try and balance that, Sam. I don't know necessarily if there's a way to do it perfectly, but we're trying to balance that, trying to keep as many assets as we can, at least our blue chip prospects and those players, but then also say, hey, we got to go all in for Ryan Suter, Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn, whatever that is, last year, this year, whatever.
Right. All right, I'll give you an easier one now, a little
okay.
non-hockey one.
Those weren't too hard.
Yeah. This is from Schmitty. Which challenge does Janko think he could beat Luds at? Milk drinking contest or a beer drinking contest?
Well, definitely not the beer drinking.
Are you a milk guy?
I need a Miller Lite.
I'm not. What was that?
Play it again.
I need a Miller Lite.
Luds was having some allergies, and he said he needed some medicine, which is a Miller Lite for this
I've
guy.
been out. You guys might not know. Do you know Luds and I are neighbors?
I've heard that you guys live in
He said
the
you
vicinity.
didn't know it for a little bit.
We didn't know it for a long time.
Let's see if he wants to talk about that after our first meeting coming up.
Well, I know I won't win a beer. Whoever
After he
asked that
gets
question,
dropped off on his doorstep.
He needs some milk.
I need some milk over beer when it comes to a Craig Ludwig contest.
Do you drink a lot of milk?
No.
I didn't think
But I don't drink as much
Drinks
beer
like a
as
half
you
a
do.
gallon a day, this guy.
Oh, yeah. I kill a gallon day and a half. Easy.
So probably I'd be 0 for 2 then.
Yeah, neither. is the answer.
Neither.
All right, let's go to Freelancer says, I'd like to know a breakdown of the steps to signing the big contracts. How much back and forth goes on and what negotiations are like. I think they really want to
Give
know
us the short story of Wyatt.
from the players, I think is the big one. How does that go in with player involvement?
Yeah.
Well, did you add on the extra part? The extra thing was, and when is Wyatt getting his 8 times 8 plus LOL?
I cut that part out, but Blood's added it.
Yeah, the Wyatt one will probably have to leave for another day. Jake's contract was done quick. That's rare. Now, how Jim likes to operate, and I usually am the one that says it to the agents is, hey, during the season, if we're going to negotiate, which we did, with Lindell. Lindell was done. This last extension was done in training camp. Pavelski, Hintz, his last 8-year deal, and then Jake. All those that were done during the season, we usually make it pretty clear to the agent, let's get a deal done and get it done quickly, or let's not. And we're not forcing anybody into doing anything, but they've got games to play.
You know why?
Yep.
No distractions.
No
Hates
distractions.
distractions.
He's right. And so
His
that's
favorite saying.
That's it. Well, and he's right, 100%. When you're playing, you don't want your contract hanging over you, no matter how big or small the numbers are, right? So that's one thing that's come from Jim. The agents are they agree usually on that's one thing they
Does
usually.
that give you leverage? Your side leverage?
No, it doesn't necessarily give us leverage. It just makes it go by quicker. So like Thomas Harley is a good example of one we did in the summer. I knew that was going to take forever. Those are going to take forever. Jason Robertson, those are going to take forever. There's no pressure points. When there's no pressure points in a negotiation, they're not going to get to their real numbers. And in defense of them, I'm probably not going to, and Jim and we're not going to get to our real numbers. Yeah. So now when training camp's coming up, or with Robertson, regular season games are coming up. Now you start getting these pressure points, and guess what starts happening? We start talking real numbers, and they start talking real numbers. So I guess the one thing it does do, Luds, I don't know about it's leverage, but you do get to real numbers quickly when you're negotiating during the season with all these guys.
So when it's coming in during the season, for the most part, that's already been done for the most part in training camp or summer, because you don't want to be, for example, if there's one that's announced in November, December, that's probably most of those talks already happened before the season started.
No,
for you guys.
No. I'm saying that if you're getting a guy done like we did with Jake in November, those are happening quick. So Jake, I can't remember the date. Say
you're not going to have a long drawn out process.
It's not going to be a long drawn out like it was with Harley or Robertson, because those were in the off season, right? And so, you're on vacation, they're on vacation. There's no games being played. There's no real pressure points. And so, as anybody would know, negotiation 101, you need pressure points in order to negotiate, right? To kind of accelerate it on both sides.
And you mentioned Oettinger. What a difference between how you guys got his new deal versus how Boston and Jeremy Swayman did his deal, and the timing and the distractions and all that. You guys were the antithesis of that.
Yeah, and I don't know what went into the Swayman contract negotiations, nor do I want. Really, it's not really.
A lot of it was public.
A lot of it was public. But with Jake, I think we felt like you're our guy. This guy just got done in Swayman. We're not going to try and say, hey, will you take a little less to stay? Let's just give him that number and see if we can get it done quickly. Ben Hankinson is Jake's agent. He did a great job on the contract. I was going to say, I think the contract got done, and I might be wrong on dates, October 28th. I think those conversations started on October 26th.
Wow.
So it was like a
that's fast.
2-day thing of just like, this is what it is. We think it's Swayman's deal. Yeah, I think so too. Okay, let's work on the structure and figure that out.
Have you ever had the most? Can you tell us not any player names or anything? Not this team. Any outrageous something they wanted? Just not from a money standpoint either. Just something outrageous that like, are you serious? Like, do you really want a condo in Hawaii like in the summer?
Well, now with the CBA LUDs, there's a lot of things you can't really necessarily do that are like that. Like, hey, can you fly my kids here? Can we get a charter flight there? You can't do that anymore. The CBA won't allow it. So you don't really get. I've got a few where I've been staggered by how much money they've asked for.
Yeah, where you put you back like
where you're just like, I just
Yeah.
don't know where you get those numbers, right? So yeah, I've been staggered by that, but not necessarily like outside of hockey.
Do you think they actually mean it when they throw it out there?
No, but sometimes those are what I was talking about earlier. That might be a July conversation
Oh,
where they're just throwing something to see, like, let's see if Dallas.
See how far it sticks.
I have a couple quick questions about contracts, if I may. You
Go ahead.
can tell me you don't want to talk about it publicly if you don't want to, because we're not here to get you or anything like this. But you and I, Janks, have talked many times, some of it very much off the record, we won't get into, about John Klingberg and the deal that he signed very early on as a Dallas Star. And that really benefited the Stars. It benefited John Klingberg. He got a very secure, big amount of money at the beginning, but it didn't age really well to the point, and you've said this to me, I don't think I'm talking out of turn, about which side should feel like you said something about the middle's the best. If it goes to one side or the other, that's probably not good for either side.
I feel strongly about
and I want you to share that with us, that conversation. And then if you can, it's okay, tell us a little bit about the negotiation and the contract that didn't happen when Klingberg went to market at the end of that deal.
Yeah. Okay. Out of respect for John and his former agent, I'm not going to go into the details of the contract negotiation. We just don't do that with our group. But I will say this, to your point, there's two things I really don't like doing in contract negotiations. Number one is number one. I don't want to overly overpay somebody. Okay. You don't want to be, the market is $6.5 million and we're paying a guy $10.5 million. Okay. You don't want to do that. Sometimes do you overpay for somebody? Yeah, that happens. But with the information you have at the time, you don't want to overpay. Okay. Number two, I don't want to grossly underpay somebody. People think that's your role, in management and you do great contracts. If a guy's worth $6 and you get him at $4.25, you got him. You stuck it where no, that's not what we want to do. We want to pay fair, because what can happen is a little bit of what the John Klingberg thing was. He thought and felt, and he was right. He was underpaid for probably 6 of those 7 years. And he felt like, okay, they owe it to me. And when the contract came up, he wanted that. And the way we looked at it was, and I'm not going to go into details of it, but the way we looked at it was, we're trying to pay him fairly still, right? We don't need to overpay somebody because we underpaid to make up for it, right? And so I think that was kind of what happened there. And that kind of opened my mind to sit there and say, you don't ever want to really grossly underpay somebody. You just want to pay them fairly and that both sides are happy, and then you can move on.
There are certain executives, not with the Stars, but I've seen other places that feel like they have to win every negotiation. All the time.
I know. And I might have felt like that, Owen, early on in my tenure here. When I first started doing this job, I felt like, I got to prove myself and I've got to win these negotiations and I'm going to be a bulldog and really grind in on some stuff. I've changed. I don't know if that's beneficial. Maybe it's beneficial for me, but it's not. It's going back to what we talked about earlier in the conversation. It's not about me. It's not about Jim. It's about the Dallas Stars. It's about us, big picture, us down the line now, 10 years from now, 4 years from now, whatever. doing the right thing for the organization and being successful year in and year out, being consistent, being a contender. And if I get too tied up in, I've got to prove myself in the contracts with these agents, then you know what? Shame on me.
I think it's beneficial. I think the players know. And I think that's why I think I look at a guy like Esa. I'm assuming, and I said to these guys, it ain't going to be a hard deal. He's not going to be asking for something astronomical. Right. He loves it here. He knows he's a great example. This was done, and boom, it's going to get done.
You know what? He's a guy. I'd actually like to ask you this on your opinion on this. I've been saying this lately, and you know how I feel about Jere Lehtinen, and I know you've played with him and probably feel some
I bring his name up quite a bit.
Yes, he does.
His jersey's retiring and deserves it. Just love everything about him. Esa Lindell is a similar Jere Lehtinen as a defenseman.
Sure. Doesn't say, just does his job, smiles, doesn't need any acknowledgement of what he does.
Exactly.
He doesn't just, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
And I enjoy doing it. I like to win, and I'll just do as much as I can for you.
Yep. And I feel like if Jere played in Toronto, if Esa played now in Toronto, they'd already have statues of both those guys.
Yep.
Yep. You know what I mean? If Esa played, I always felt like, and Ledge, you'll totally agree with this, we have a defensive forward award. Why don't we have a defensive defenseman?
We talk about it a lot.
We literally had this show.
Yeah.
You guys had a show. Okay.
No, we've done this segment.
I'm telling you right now, Esa would for sure be in that conversation.
Oh, yep.
Now, would he get votes for it? I don't know. But I'll tell you this. If he played in Toronto, he would win it.
Yep.
Almost every year.
Agreed.
Telling you.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I have one more, and then I want you to hit that.
We only have 2 more of the year, so.
Okay, good. And we've been
already taken them way
too much of your time. Well, I want to ask you 2 parts about Jamie Benn contractually. One, the evolution of how Jamie Benn's big contract has been perceived by the organization, by the fan base, because it's changed over 8 years, good and bad, and all the in between. It's been an interesting roller coaster of that's great value. You have to sign him, to, oh my God, he's never going to live up to that, to then being palatable to deal with it, and how you and Jim and your staff has reconfigured the core of the team and who's this and that. But then how do you deal with his next contract?
Well,
I think that'll be, to answer the second part of your question first.
You want me to say it? None of your business.
Well, it isn't any of Owen's business.
No, thank you.
I know people are interested, and to be honest with you guys, and I'm transparently saying this, that'll be up to Jamie. What does Jamie want to do? I had a great idea with him when Crosby signed his 2 years at 8.7. I went to Jamie and I said, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we do 2 years at 1.4?
I thought you were going to say 14 and 14.
I knew you were.
He was going to come back. How about 14.0?
Yeah, exactly.
He did not. He laughed and thought it was funny.
Good.
And he's got a great sense. We got a good relationship. But it'll be up to him. What does he want to do? He's
well, your boss is on the record saying he will be a Dallas Star. He's been pretty adamant about it.
Yeah, and I don't think Jamie wants to go anywhere. Here's what I'm very confident we'll work something out at the end of the year, but Jamie will have a lot of say in that. And then your first part of your question's about his
big
contract. I feel like, and I've kind of always felt like this, even though you were talking about the ebbs and flows, I felt like we've gotten value out of Jamie Benn's $9.5 million times 8. Jamie does more things off the ice than anybody can ever understand or realize. I tell this story a lot, and I'm not going to say individual names. Luds will really appreciate this story. We were playing, I'll tell you the team. You can probably figure out some of who it was. This is probably 10 years ago. This is the type of stuff Jamie Benn does that people don't understand or realize. Okay? So we're playing St. Louis in Dallas. There was a player on St. Louis who was kind of running around and going after a bunch of our players. And Jamie had enough. And on the bench, the player was on the bench. He didn't play that much. And he basically barked at Jamie for not fighting, because Jamie was kind of barking. So this player barked at Jamie about, why don't you fight me? Jamie turned around to the bench right before the faceoff and said, hey, I'm not going to fight you because it'll be a disadvantage for our team. But if you do one more thing, I'm going after him. And he pointed at a skilled player on St. Louis that went white. The rest of the game, we were watching
That's old school.
in the press box, and we were like, what is wrong with this said player? I'm not going to say his name. The puck was going in one direction, and that player was going in the opposite. And Jamie had completely just terrified him into getting out of his game. And that's the type of stuff nobody hears about. Nobody knows about. We ended up winning that game 4-1. We looked great. We had a great game. We came down afterwards. We're like, what's wrong with this player? And the coaches were like, oh, this is what Jamie did. And we're like, to what Lud said, that's old school.
Seems a common theme with him. He scares people every day.
He still has that fear factor in him.
And yet, I'm sure you saw the clip when, coincidentally, they were playing St. Louis.
Shen
gets knocked into the bench. I think it was Bichsel.
It was Bichsel
that knocked him in.
Yeah.
And he fell in Jamie's lap, and Jamie showing a lot of respect for Braden Shen. Hey, I got you. Lift him up. They're all laughing.
Yeah.
Everyone's okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one because you don't want to see anyone get hurt. And we're not going to ask you about all the bubbles that are going on and the weird craziness that seems to happen with facial injuries. Sam, couple more before we got to wrap it up because Mark's been way too generous.
Yeah. Side note, could we mic up Jamie Benn for every game? Because it's the funniest thing in the
you're
world.
not going to hear it.
Whenever that comes up.
You probably wouldn't. Yeah, we wouldn't get what we're talking about right now.
Probably not.
We did.
All right. Tyler HK93 says, is it possible to really have a dynasty like the Red Wings or Devils in the current salary cap era?
It's tougher, that's for sure. It's a great question. I think you can. I think you can be consistent. I never thought teams would win back-to-back cups in the salary cap era, right? I never thought that would happen. I'm like, oh, that's gone. There's too much parity. You can win the cup. You can miss the playoffs the next year. Pittsburgh's done it and Tampa's done it. 2 teams have done it. So I think there are ways to be done. You just got to do a really good job of managing, of scouting, of developing, of coaching. You got to get health. You got to be lucky. You got to kind of have everything fall into place consistently to be that dynasty type team, I would say. I think it's harder. I think it's harder now, but it is doable.
Last one is from Ardell.
Hey.
It says, Janko, can you tell us how aligned the Dallas club is with Cedar Park in terms of coaching, philosophy, instruction, and systems? How important to the success of the Dallas Stars are the coaches of the Texas Stars?
I'll tell you guys this. I think the 4 most important people in a hockey organization, okay? Number 1, your NHL general manager. Number 2, your and this isn't really necessarily in order, but NHL GM, NHL head coach, your director of amateur scouting, whoever runs your draft. And then the 4th one is surprising to people. Not a lot of people probably think this, but I do. Your AHL head coach, because he's got to do all those things Ardell's talking about. He's got to prepare those guys. It's no coincidence when Stankoven came up, when Harley came up 2 years ago, when Bichsel's coming up now, when Bork's come up. When these guys come up and they look NHL ready, and yeah, sure, there's certain things they've got to work through in their games, and they're not perfect. That's for anybody that's 19 or 21 or whenever they come up. But the reason why they're okay with the systems and they can kill penalties and do all this stuff is because the guys down in Texas Stars are doing their jobs and doing it at a high level. So we're very aligned with them. Both the staffs talk a lot, and we're on the same page 100%, and it helps.
Well, you just triggered a thought in my head because you said this to me, and I've brought this up to Luds before, and I didn't believe it at the time. Rope Hintz early on was going up and down and couldn't stick. And I don't remember what our conversation context was, but you looked at me and said, that's our future number 1 center. And I went, you're out of your mind. Because he seemed one-dimensional at the time. He was a rush chance only, didn't work the zone very well, didn't feel like he had the defensive coverage there. And I say this with all due respect because he's improved in all of those areas. You knew that. How did you know?
I don't know.
Not to pump your tires too much, but
no, I
remember you were definitive.
I probably
with that.
said that, and like looking back on it, it looks good, right? But at the time, you're making projections on players and what you think and what you hope that they're going to turn into, right? And you don't know. You don't know. None of us know. Anybody that sits in these chairs and says that they know at drafting 17, 18-year-old kids that this is what they're going to turn into, I think they're lying. You don't know. You make projections. You hope that you're right. And hopefully more times than not you are. On that one, I might have been right. I can probably give you 10 other ones where I've been wrong. So.
Well, I would ask you the last one then, and someone that you probably do have an eye on or an idea is Bichsel.
Yeah.
Is he here to stay, You think, or is it more?
I think
he gets something out of going back when he goes back.
I think he's here to stay. I think there's not a lot of silver lining of Miro's injury and Lundqvist's injuries. Right. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt, and we're not happy those two guys are out. But that is a silver lining that we can see more of Bichsel. I think he is going to stay. I think he's gotten better.
What have you? Because we talk about him quite a bit, obviously. What have you seen his improvement from game 1 to
just
now?
Details like defending, stick, being in the right position, gap. He's always big and can skate, and he's going to have those attributes. It's just the details of the game on defending. That's where I think the coaches down in Austin have really set him up to be able to be successful. Mm-hmm. And now Alain Nazardine and Pete and those guys are really hammering home on some things they want to see from him at this level. Willie Desjardins was always great. He was the head coach down in Texas for a while, and I got the opportunity.
When I was there.
They won it all when he was there, right?
It does. No, I'm a huge Willie fan.
No, but Willie, I had the privilege to sit in with Jamie Alexiak. He had a meeting, a midterm meeting, and I was down in Cedar Park. And Willie said, "Jenks, do you want to sit in on this?" I said, "I'd love to." So I sat in, and he told Jamie, he said, "How do you think you're playing?" He's like, "I think I'm playing great." And Willie goes, "Okay, well, I've been hard on you." Jamie goes, "Yeah, you have." He goes, "Do you know why?" He goes, "Not really, because I think I'm playing great." And Willie goes, "I'm hard on you because you are playing great here, but you won't be able to get away with some of those things at the next level. So I'm going to hold you accountable on those things at the next level because I know what that's like. I know what it is to be up there. And there's things they're not going to put up with up there in details, and you got to get those right. You can get away with it here. You can't there." And it helped Jamie to open his – that's what we're doing with Bichsel. Those are things they're doing with Bichsel. They're holding him to a high standard no matter where he's at.
I just got to say, Ardell said you made his day and month by recognizing his name. Man of the people right here.
Ardell.
Man of the people.
Hey, lads, do you have anything else, or Sam, that you want to ask before? We have one super chat I want to give.
No, I'm good.
Anything else you want?
Bing bong.
We have a super chat. So the Bing Bong is our sounder. Burn Doyle's with a little Broughton and Duchesne. Thank you to Mark and the rest of the management team for making sure we are this competitive year in, year out.
That's something we get a lot, honestly.
And
for,
that's,
for this organization.
I appreciate that, you guys. And I appreciate that comment because that's what we're trying to be. I talked earlier. I don't know if you guys can recall it. Like, it was so long ago, right?
No kidding.
Jim in Jim's regime, he started in 13-14. We made the playoffs. Next year, 14-15, we missed. 15-16, we made the playoffs. 16-17 and 17-18, we missed. We were kind of in, and Jim kept saying, he's like, we got to get in. We got to get a ticket to the dance every year. We got to get in every year. Just get in. Just be consistent. And that's something that we've really tried to build towards. And so it's been a lot of hard work. Like I said, we haven't done it perfectly, but that's the biggest compliment we can get.
Boy, I could ask you 1,000 more questions.
Just right off of that.
There's so many other things to do, but Mark, you gave us way more. I said, come down for an hour. It's been an hour and 40
Apparently
minutes.
I'll be buying the
and I want you to know
now.
And this is not just trying to pump your tires.
Anyway,
I know.
We have more people watching now than when we started, and nobody left. It just keeps
that's
growing.
Cool. Good.
It means
You know who
that-
else is watching? Waddle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just sent me a text.
Did he?
And it had something to do with the Razor comment.
He's the one who told us to ask about Tuck,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Well, he's my beer league teammate and our former
Ask about
stats
what?
colleague.
Oh, it's
and
Tuck.
Oh,
We were
Yep,
talking
he
trades
wanted
the other
to
day,
know.
and he was
Tuck,
like,
okay.
"Oh, don't forget about
Well, I
Tuck."
liked how Luds brought that in, but he brought it in for Sador.
Yeah,
Well, I was trying
Sneak
not
him in there.
You know what I was trying to do.
I know exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Hopefully I tiptoed around it.
You did. You didn't give me
Oh,
I can't-
nice.
I can't thank you enough.
Sugar honey iced
We're
tea.
past the hour,
my
right?
last question is, we haven't asked about the Four Nations tournament.
yeah.
It starts tonight.
Yeah, it does.
And USA, Finland tomorrow, Canada, Sweden tonight. Yeah, USA shirt. This is exciting. I know it can probably be nerve-wracking for management that have players in it.
Especially when Lindell's going to play 35 minutes a
That's
game.
exactly right. He will.
Open-ended Four Nations question. What are your thoughts about this? We haven't seen this since Sochi, a best-on-best international competition.
I'm excited about it. I really am. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, our guys that are there, you're hoping don't get hurt. You hope nobody gets hurt, to be honest with you. I think the U.S. is going to win it. I love their team. I don't know where their holes are, to be honest with you. I know losing Quinn Hughes is going to be difficult, having an offensive defenseman like that on the back end. But, I was thinking it'd be interesting to hear what you guys said. I was talking last night with a friend of mine who's from Finland, and he's like, "What do you think?" I said, "How are you guys going to do it without Miro? Is there a player in the tournament?" The only one I could think of was Hedman, who, if you took that individual off the team like Miro, I think Miro might be the number one guy in the entire tournament, for value in terms
MVP
of
for his team.
Yeah, like take McDavid off Canada. You still got McKinnon and Point and Crosby running around, right? You take Miro off Finland, and it's like that could be the biggest loss for any of the 4 teams losing one
Maybe
player.
Hedman. Maybe
Hedman,
maybe.
right? That was the only guy I could
I'd
think
say
of.
Makar, but their lineup is so deep.
I'd say Makar too.
Yeah.
He might be around it, but again, they're okay. So they got to go get Thomas Harley.
Yeah, you got 4 other guys that can go in there.
Like if he would have got hurt
You
earlier.
lose Quinn Hughes, and they have Jake Sanderson brought in as the extra.
Right.
They have Clayton Keller, Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson didn't make the squad.
Yeah.
How
Whereas Finland
how
pulls up a
close-
guy from the AHL.
How close were Wyatt, Robo,
Duchesne.
Harley, Duke? How many?
All those guys were very, very close. I'll tell you that, like very close. Harley and Johnston, because Jim's on the management staff. Harley and Johnston they almost made it. If they would have had another injury or two, I think you would have probably seen both those guys on it.
Ardell's in the chat. He said it's like taking Luka off Slovenia, Miro off of Finland. That's a pretty high. That's an interesting comp.
It is, and it's probably there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
I just think that you're talking about Esa playing 35.
Yeah.
Miro was
played every
Miro was
situation.
going to play.
He was
gonna
gonna play 35.
Essa's on their power play because Miro's not there.
That's right. He's on their second unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going 5 forwards on the
Yeah.
first one. So it'll be fun. It should be fun. It's best on best. It's guys that I think they're all going to be engaged. I think they all care.
Yeah.
They get to play for the flag, right? That's pretty cool. So I'm
You'll
rooting
be
for
holding
the
your
US.
breath and wishing him well.
Yeah, exactly.
So U.S. wins. Who do they beat?
I'm sorry.
U.S. wins. You said. Who do they beat in the championship?
I'm going to say U.S. over Canada.
It's going to be fun. And they play on Saturday in
Oh,
Montreal.
doubleheader that day.
The championship is in Boston, which we're going to do a post-game show for next Thursday. So a
Gotta
week
try to
from
get
tomorrow.
Jake in there.
After that. Mark, you weren't our first guest, but I believe we've set a new record for
you blew
length
Razor
of
away.
time.
You
And we
blew
talked to
Razor
Razor
away.
for
without
9
no
minutes.
beers.
that.
No beers.
Razor.
An hour 45 with no beers. Is
Done with you.
I
Get a
only,
Janko trophy out here.
I
With
only,
bobblehead.
only because he's on our show twice a week. Sean wrote a piece for his Substack back towards the beginning of training camp about the top 13 most powerful people in the Dallas Stars organization. Did that thing go through the ranks? Because Razor brought it up, Brad brought it up. It had to
Let
at
me
least
guess, I was 14.
maybe, but it had to been there had to be conversations.
we could get
in
a
the office.
Janko bobblehead and drive him in here in a Hot Wheels little jacked
Oh,
up,
that's not nice.
jacked up Hummer. Right?
It has to be a match, but you couldn't do like a big car. It's got to be a little tiny car. What are you
That's what I
saying?
mean.
It would be kind of cool, and you could have one that has a calculator.
Oh, man. It's all in your
Tap
head, Jan.
compliant.
You got one on your
do
shoulders,
you use a
man.
physical calculator?
I do, yeah.
I figured.
Well, the calculator's been wrong 0% of the time. I've made some mistakes, so I need those. Like you were talking about earlier, Sam. I need those Excel formula sheets and
That's
and
why
calculators.
when I was getting my contract done, they were using an abacus, and I don't think all them little balls are on there.
Look
You
at
know what
that.
that is, Sam?
One of many of our
You know what an
chats
abacus is?
Yeah, it's a
firing
little
off.
thing
Thank
move
you to
around.
you,
Yeah,
Mark. Thank you, Janko. Absolutely awesome
Thanks,
episode.
Cam. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Thanks, guys.
Best of luck the rest of the way. I know that the next 3.5 weeks are going to be exciting before the deadline and then
Yep.
beyond, but we can't thank you enough.
I'll see you in Jersey.
That's right. Appreciate it, guys.
Mark Janko, Assistant General Manager of the Dallas Stars, along with, of course, Luds, Sam, John, myself. Thank you so much. And we will be here tomorrow for our show at 1 o'clock. No Luds. Luds will be traveling for his U18 team tournament up in Minnesota. So it'll be me and Sean and Sam.
Good God, wrap it up, man.
Tomahawk City.
We all silly like the mayor.